Hey everyone, I'm back again with another video. I do have a notebook here to kind of try to sort out everything I'm gonna talk about because I get mumble jumbled in the brain, and yeah, so I kind of want to try to refrain from being all over the place. Will that happen? Probably not, but I do have some notes. So I think I'm kind of at a point in my recovery journey of depression, to kind of talk about I'm in a good place where I can talk about what I'm experiencing and what's being done and what has been done and all that kind of stuff. So I've been depressed, like I said, since I was 14 or something, a really long time. In 2020, when I was about 22, it got very severe. I experienced a lot of different symptoms and even psychosis and all that kind of stuff. So in my most recent inpatient stay, my actual community psychiatrist, he was the one that admitted me into the hospital. And after discussing everything with him, he told me that I have treatment-resistant depression. And kind of textbook of that would be an inadequate response to at least 2 medications with an appropriate dose and duration. So, I mean, I tried antidepressants a long time ago, and then in the last 5 years specifically, I've been on a lot of different medication for extended periods of time, different medication concoctions. I think the most medication I've taken at one time is 7 or 8 regular medications. Yeah, but let's kind of jump into it, I guess. So right now I've been on the same medication since November 2024, and it was working really, really well. Until recently, it wasn't, which is okay because I feel like it's all a spectrum. I feel like there are so many different places you can be with depression, and as much as yeah, I'm depressed, I feel like I feel like I'm high functioning right now, which is a good and bad because I don't seem as sick as I am. I feel like personally, I put a lot on myself because I'm fine. But I need to take a step back, and I need to focus on all the little parts of getting better, 100%. So currently, my medications, I'm on aripiprazole, which is Abilify, methylphenidate, which is Ritalin, and bupropion, which is Wellbutrin. I also regularly seek psychotherapy. And so between those 3 medications and regular therapy, I was doing really well for an extended period of time. The Abilify, I'm on a pretty average dose, I want to say. The Ritalin, for ADHD, but we're starting to think that the ADHD is linked to the depression, so we're actually trying to get me off the Ritalin, and see if we can treat the depression and have those symptoms of ADHD go away. And then the Wellbutrin, I'm on a max dose right now, a very high dose. So a little frustrating that it's not working as well as it should be, but that is okay. So right now we're kind of looking at alternative therapies, but in my experience, there's so many things that I've tried. I've tried, well, I kind of like dive into it a little bit. So there are, for antidepressants, there are SSRIs, which are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which blocks the reuptake of serotonin, making more available in the brain, which improves mood and emotion. There are SNRIs, which are serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors, which block the reuptake of serotonin and norepinephrine, which increases availability of these neurotransmitters, improving mood and emotion. Then there's like two like ones I've never tried. TCAs, which are tricyclic antidepressants. Similar to the SNRI, sometimes affects dopamine, but to a lesser extent. And then there's an MAOI, which is a monoamine oxidase inhibitor. So monoamine oxidase is the enzyme that breaks down the neurotransmitters like norepinephrine, serotonin, and dopamine. And this blocks it, leaving more in the brain, therefore increasing mood. And then there's also atypical antidepressants. So these have a diverse mechanism of action depending on the drug, but they typically affect the neurotransmitters in the brain. In addition to like antidepressants, I've also been on antipsychotics. So there are first generation, which are known as like the typical antipsychotics. And sorry, I'm like reading notes. And these block dopamine receptors in the brain, reducing the impact of dopamine. Then the wow, reading is so hard, guys. Anyway, so it blocks dopamine, the dopamine receptors, which is the neurotransmitter believed to be involved in psychosis. It can also affect serotonin and norepinephrine, as well as glutamate, but it's mostly dopamine. And then there's second generation, which are atypical antipsychotics. And these block dopamine and serotonin receptors and kind of like help find a balance of the neurotransmitters in the brain. Other medications that I'm on or I have taken are stimulants for ADHD. So these increase levels of neurotransmitters such as like dopamine, norepinephrine, improving inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. And then there's benzodiazepines, which enhance the effects of gamma aminobutyric GABA. It enhances the effects of GABA, which help reduce anxiety, promote relaxation, and also induce sleep. So, I've been on lots of medications. So I've never been on the tricyclic antidepressants or the MAOIs. Don't know why. They seem a little bit riskier, I think. So, that's probably why my doctor or my psychiatrist didn't put me on them. But I've had one SNRI, which was venlafaxine or Effexor. Actually, this one I took with like a pretty big concoction of medications. The Effexor worked for a bit, but it gave me such severe nightmares that were like very lucid. I thought it was real. So I actually had to go on a blood pressure medication, I believe. I think it's called Prazosin. And I think it was found to be a blood pressure medication, but it also helped with the nightmares of Effexor. And then that was an SNRI. And then SSRIs, I've tried citalopram, which like Celexa, escitalopram, which is Cipralex, fluoxetine, which is Prozac, and sertraline, which is Zoloft. And then atypical antidepressants, I've tried trazodone and bupropion, which is Wellbutrin. And then typical antipsychotics I've tried are haloperidol, which can also be known as Haldol, and loxapine. And then atypical antipsychotics I've tried are aripiprazole, which is Abilify, olanzapine, which is Zyprexa, paliperidone, which is Invega, quetiapine, which is Seroquel, and risperidone, which is Risperdal. Also for ADHD, I've tried methylphenidate, which is also Ritalin. There's a couple other medications that are methylphenidate, but the one I'm on is Ritalin, and lisdexamfetamine, which is Vyvanse. because I have such a complex psychiatric, I don't want to, not disorder, but like a case. I'm actually covered under something called Plan G. So my psychiatric medications are covered. Vyvanse is not one of the ones that are covered because, again, ADHD medication. But because methylphenidate or Ritalin actually has mood boosting properties, that one is covered under Plan G. So I do take that one. But like I mentioned earlier, we're thinking that the symptoms of ADHD are more aligned with the treatment-resistant depression. So we're just kind of trying to figure everything out. But because I'm treatment resistant, my community psychiatrist actually started looking into, or wants me to start looking into, other options. So there were 3 options he did give me. I have my follow-up with him next week or 2 weeks from now. So we're gonna kind of go over all the different options and kind of discuss what might work best for me. So the options are electroconvulsive therapy, which is ECT. This one induces a brief controlled seizure in the brain with electric currents. It's thought to cause changes in the brain chemistry and neural connections, potentially alleviating symptoms of severe depression. Then there's transcranial magnetic stimulation, which is TMS. This one uses magnetic pulses to stimulate nerve cells in specific areas of the brain. This changes the pattern of the firing neurons, correcting abnormal brain activity and therefore improving symptoms of depression. And then there's ketamine-assisted therapy. So I tried to do some digging into like all of these. Ketamine is like, the ketamine-assisted therapy was the hardest one to research, I found. But basically, it's lots of fancy scientific words, but generally speaking, it's a fast-acting antidepressant that increases neuroplasticity, which basically means it boosts the brain's ability to change, adapt, and form new or strengthen existing neural connections. There's like different options for sure, different risks with every option, but yeah, we're kind of just like, between my family and I and my psychiatrist, like we're just really trying to find one that we really think would benefit me. Because yeah, 14 years is a long time to live with depression. And yeah, so I'm hoping we can treat it a little bit at least. I think for me, psychotherapy is definitely something I'm going to continue throughout everything. I find I do well with talking. And I think that's another reason why I decided to redo my YouTube again, because I find when I talk out loud, I come to realizations a lot easier than like being in my own head. I also do a lot of writing and stuff like that, but I find talking, like with my therapist right now, like I'll just talk to her, and sometimes I'll be talking and I'm like, wait a minute, this is like a weird way of thinking. Like maybe I should like take a step back, and it's a lot, but yeah, I'm gonna continue seeing my therapist throughout all this. But yeah, I think that's kind of it as far as like the treatment resistance goes. And that's kind of like just like basic rundown of like everything I've tried, kind of what's coming next, that sort of thing. And obviously I'll take you guys along as I find out what other therapy I'm going to use, whether that's ketamine assisted or ECT or TMS. But yeah, I know there are other people in this position, and we're all trying to get better. And I feel like by sharing kind of like what my thinking around everything is, maybe I'll hear from other people and be like, oh, but like this really worked really well for me, and like this didn't. And like, just like, I want to share toolboxes. Like, at the end of the day, like, medication is part of my toolbox. Psychotherapy is part of my toolbox. There are so many mindfulness activities that I do, hobbies that I do that are part of my toolbox. So there's just so many things, but I'm trying to come up with, and it's hard to like describe, but I've noticed I have a good life, I'd say, for the most part. Like, I don't feel like I have a reason to be depressed. I feel like I very much have like a chemical imbalance in my brain for absolutely zero reason at all, except that my brain is attacking me. But I feel like, where was I going with this? See, this is what I mean. I am no thought process, not a thought behind these eyes. I don't know what I was saying. Well, yeah. So I think I'm trying to figure out kind of like the reason why I'm so depressed. Like, I very much, like, experiencing emotions is a normal part of everyday life. And when my emotions have reasons, I'm kind of like, I take a step back, I feel the emotion, I do the things, and I kind of get on with my day. But I find when I am depressed, and like, I find like sadness and depression for me are two very different things. Like, my dog passed away in June, and I felt very sad. But then I started getting depressed, and there's like warning signs, and obviously like things that I know and my family knows that kind of are like ringing bells when it comes to like, oh, I'm getting really depressed again. But when I'm feeling like this numbness for no reason, or this lack of motivation or stuff like that, that's what frustrates me a lot, because I think I feel like I have a light inside of me, and I feel like I try to anyway light up the rooms I go into. I try to have meaningful interactions with people, and I sort of just like suppress everything. And I think I've suppressed so much for so long that I think subconsciously there's a lot going on, and I need to look into, I think, my core values and beliefs. And I think from there, like, I'll find answers as to why I am the way I am. And I think, I don't know how else to describe that. I'm coming up with a plan. Because I know not everyone has access to like psychotherapy and whatnot, but I think forming this tool in a toolbox is really important, and by no means is it easy. Like, it's a really hard tool, like it takes a lot of practice, but I think eventually I'll share it, and once I've like perfected it, because I am kind of a perfectionist when it comes to these things, or like I'll give like a general overview one day, but I want to kind of like, I know it's starting to work for me, but I want to see the long-term effects of it before I share it, because I just want to know it'll work for people. But like I said, like, it takes practice and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so that's kind of all my treatment-resistant depression. That's kind of all I wanted to like touch on today. I know a lot of us are in the same boat, and you know what? I see you guys, I hear you, and just know I'm with you. It sucks sometimes, sucks really bad sometimes, but you're not alone. I know that's like so easy to say that you're not alone, but I think when we I know for myself, I think a certain way about myself, and I'm very hard on myself. I'm not very nice to myself. And I think by being kinder to myself, I can probably, especially in this like time where I'm actually going through a severe depression, like I think just being kind to myself and like making sure I'm making time to fill my own cup is really important. But yeah, that's kind of everything. That's the jib jab for today. Thank you all for listening, and feel free to reach out to me. I want to support, but I want people to know they're not alone. Have a good day, you guys. Love you.